Hello, everyone. I just want to touch bases. This is Scott Arias with Ace Consulting. I just wanted to touch bases this morning briefly, talk about a few things going on that I've read about and I'm seeing in the market. Uh, if you haven't seen or haven't heard, there's been a lot of talk about uh, the next recession. Now, I know that unfortunately we don't know about a recession until after it occurs because a recession is simply defined as two negative GDP growth quarters. So we don't know if we're going to have a negative GDP growth, quarter until after it occurs. So, we can only forecast it and people can only speculate if we're in a recession. Unfortunately, we know about it after it occurs. And after we know about it, people's perception of a recession helps, drive that recession. So, everybody should be concerned about, hey, we're, in a recession. And so people start cutting back things like paying, buying stuff and paying, taking on extra debt and those type of things. So, why am I talking about the possibility for a recession? Number one is a recession is inevitable. They occur. Now, how often they occur is questionable. One of them, in Australia, for example, they haven't had, and don't quote me on these years here, but I think last article I read, it was 27 years of since they had their last recession. That's very, very uncommon. Typically in the United States, we've seen about 7 years. 7 years has been very typical. We've had the longest economic growth in history currently. The article I read yesterday and some of the research I've been doing says we can expect to see a recession come third quarter of 2020. Like I said, that's all the talking heads. And I once heard that those who look into the hourglass to come up with conclusions ultimately eat glass. And that's kind of a true statement. We don't know for sure, but we know one is inevitably coming. How bad it is another question. How bad it's going to be. Now, when we heard the word recession, a lot of people get scared because of what happened in the Great Recession that had occurred back in, say, 2008. Recessions are inevitable. They will occur. We will go through it. The market will correct, and then we'll move on. Why am I talking about this today more than anything is I think that we've been in such a long series of economic growth, a long period of economic growth, that people have failed to realize that a recession will occur. Unemployment is at its all-time low. What is it, 3.5% right now? That won't occur forever. So during the recession, it retracts and not everybody ends up having a job, and unemployment will grow. Will it grow to 15%? No. But will it grow to 5, 7, 8%? Probably. So if I were to encourage anybody who's working for an organization or in an organization, I would encourage you to invest in that organization. So when those times come to you where you have to, where a company has to make an assessment on your value, you show the value. I know us, for our employees, we have 70 some people, currently employed by Ace Consulting. I know with our people, if we had to make a cutback, the first question I would say would be, who brings the least value? Keep in mind, though, too, that, that organizations like mine, where we offer workers that can come to contractors and then leave contractors. It benefits contractors during a recession, so they don't have to bring people on, pay unemployment, try to find work for them, that kind of thing. I once heard Turner say during a CEO of Turner say during a meeting that they were taking jobs at zero profitability in order to keep their people working. That's admirable. Probably not the best business decision, especially in our business because of the risk involved there. So I'm not a run and and say the house is on fire kind of person. I'm not the pessimistic kind of person, but the reality is a recession will inevitably occur. Invest in the organization you're with, so when that happens, you are one to be retained. The reality of recessions is that all people are not retained. During the Great Recession, I saw organizations go from 300 or 400 million to 200 million. There's a lot of tough choices that have to be made at that time. Speaking about growing your business as a business person, I started this company during the Great Recession. You can still flourish as a business. It takes work. It takes focus. It takes good business practices. The great thing about a recession from a business perspective is that the people that run a well-oiled business end up pushing through a recession without major hiccups, and the organizations that are kind of weak in nature and don't have all the tools to run an effective organization end up failing. So it's kind of like anything. It kind of clears out the old, lets the new in. It's a good way of kind of purifying the market to have successful run businesses out there, especially the construction business, because there's a lot of people out there right now in the construction business that probably shouldn't be in the business. They're in the business because the money's there now, the need's there now. However, when the market gets tough and it becomes more competitive and there's not as many opportunities, those people who don't run effective businesses will ultimately fail. And that's not a bad thing, because the reason that they will fail is because they don't have systems and procedures. Last thing I'll say on that is, if your organization doesn't use EOS, which is Entrepreneur Operating System, they need to. If you don't know what that is, you need to buy this book. And this book is Traction, and read it. It's a good book. It talks about the EOS, the EOS process, and really this is mostly about creating metrics that we actually track and identify. I don't know if anyone's ever watched, or you watch on NBC, The Profit, but that's what it's all about, creating these metrics. So I encourage you to buy this book. It's by Dino Wickman, Traction. It's a great book for somebody who is looking to improve their organization. And my last recommendation to you will be this. Part of the thought of going into a recession is developing people so they bring more value. And I would encourage you to, read this book. And I've talked about this before. It is Chop Wood, Carry Water. And one of my former students gave me this book. Great book. It talks about a lot of principles, personal, professional, business, a lot of great books. It's a short read. It's not that difficult. I use it in my organization, passing around to people, and they read a chapter at a time. You can see a chapter is only a few pages, like, chapter 18 is 3 pages long. So it's something good that you could put out to people, talk about it on a regular basis. So part of, everything was this entire process of developing people is to make your organization better. And you should obviously do that. So anyhow, I just want to wrap up. We talked about a recession. I'm not trying to be an alarmist here telling you that, hey, the sky is falling, but we have to be prepared for the inevitable to occur. organizations like my organization that provides site personnel, we could be a good resource for you to get the manpower that you need for management. More importantly, you just need to be aware that you need to make your organization strong now, so during a recession, your organization makes it through. And that's all I have for today. Have a good weekend.